Okay, guys, I'm going to start. Hi, everybody. Hope you are. I'm not sure where you guys are. If you are in Asia, it's late afternoon for you guys. If you are in Latin America, it's probably very early. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we are going to talk a little bit about off-campus accommodation and trying to give you some advice when you start looking, and if you were going to start looking for off-campus accommodation. Just to make clear a few points before we started, it's DCU doesn't have any official partnership with any accommodation outside of DCU. Okay, so the only official DCU accommodation is our DCU on-campus accommodation. Okay, so I'm going to give you a lot of options off campus, but it's not linked with DCU in any shape or form. Okay, so let's start with a bit of housekeeping. So during the session, I would please everybody to mute your microphones. Okay, and you can submit your questions through our chat anytime during the presentation, and Priya kindly offer to monitoring the chat. So, and then he will pick some of the questions at the end, and we are going to go through them. And we are going to have a QA session at the end, okay? So, Bosch, you can add all your questions through chat during the whole presentation. And if you have very specific questions, I would advise you to send an email to our DCU Global Recruitment at dcu.ie. Okay, so during the webinar, it's very hard to go for a very detailed question. If it's very personal, we might need some context. So it's very hard to talk about without knowing everything. So it's easier go through the email. During the webinar, we are going to keep a very general questions. Okay, so as usual, I'm going to talk before the presentation. I'm going to introduce our Global Office team. We does that in every webinar, and then I'm going to talk about the next webinar, and then we are going through the presentation itself. Okay, so our global team, so Bridget, it's our global recruitment manager, and then Priya here, he's responsible for Middle East and Africa. Colleen is responsible from North America. Shistas is responsible for India, May, China, and myself is responsible for Latin America and Southeast Asia. So again, you guys are very welcome, and thank you very much for joining us. Regarding our next webinar, we are going to have a student experience panel. So that's a really good webinar where you'll be able to talk with our students ambassadors. So they are current students at DCU. They can share their experience. They have been through all of that. So everything that you are going through now, they have done that. So they have a lot to talk about. They have a lot of advice to give to you guys, and they can give a very different perspective than I can, because they are actually doing it. Okay, and then we will have in the future employability as international students, student support service, registration, and prepare for arrival in Dublin. Those webinars, we should need to confirm the date, okay? But the student experience panel will be on the 22nd of June. So let's start the presentation. So I'm going to start with the Dublin Postal District. That's very useful for you to understand how Dublin is divided. So we have Dublin is divided in areas, and it's called Dublin 1, Dublin 2, Dublin 3, Dublin 4. Each one of those areas, there's a lot of other areas inside. So, but it's very useful when you need to search for an address, for example. If you are going to look areas close to DCU, so you would be looking for Dublin 5, Dublin 7, Dublin 9, and Dublin 11. So if you are going to look for off-campus accommodation, I would advise you to look at those areas first, and then you can expand to other areas. Of course, everybody, it's the idea is for you to live very, very close to the CU, but we all know that sometimes you have to go a little bit further, but it's very important to reinforce that the CU is very well served with public transport. So it's very easy to move around from other regions to the CU. For example, I live in the city center, and I actually get a bus to go to the CU every day, and this takes me 25 minutes. So it's not that bad. So just for you to have an idea in the map, so I would be living close here where it's saying when you have a big Dublin, and then you have the saying like Temple Bar, I'm living there, and I go to the CU that you can see the square where the CU it is, and it takes me 25 minutes. So like it is possible to go a little bit outside of the CU, and it's very easy to go to the CU anyway. So the transport type in Dublin, we have pretty much 3 types. Okay, so you have the Dublin bus, you have the Dart, that's an electric train, and you have the Luas, that's a light trail tram. So the most common is the Dublin bus, and it covers pretty much the whole city, every single area of Dublin. There are many apps that you can use, that you can find the nearest bus stop, the frequency of the bus, hours of operations, live departure, and which route you have to take as well. So if you add in the app where you are and where you want to go, the app is going to give you which bus you should take. Okay, so every single bus stop in Dublin, there is a screen where you can see how long it will take for your bus to arrive in that bus stop, but you can see that on the app as well. So that's very handy that you can check what time the bus will be in the bus stop before even you leave your home. To pay for the Dublin bus, that's very important for if you have never been in Ireland. So you do have a Leap card, that it's a card where you can add credits even through your mobile phone. Okay, and then you just tap on the bus, or you can pay by cash. But in the Dublin bus, they just accept coins. Okay, and then the Dart and the Luas, you can use your Leap card, but you have machines to buy a ticket if you need. And here it's an idea of all the public transport lines that brings you to the CU. Okay, of course, I'm not going through every single line because we would take the whole webinar doing that, but we are going to send to you the presentation later on, and then you can see all the areas that has access to the CU. So for example, if you are in Navan, for example, there is a bus route to the CU. So you can see here all the transport lines, public transport lines that brings you to the CU. So when you start looking for the accommodation, the first thing you should look at the resource that the CU offer to you, and that's the student union. So we do have our student pad. It's the official DCU-SU Off Campus Accommodation list. It's very important that it's a platform that's solely advertising platform. Okay, DCU do not inspect the properties. Does not carry any guard of vetting on the landlords. It's the responsibility of students to check each property and make sure that everything is fine. Okay, so it's just an advertised platform. The CU doesn't hold any responsibility or doesn't do any check. Okay, it's just to give you another option when landlords can offer rooms and properties on that platform. It's a very useful resource. Okay, so we do have some student residents outside of DCU. Again, they are not part of DCU. Sorry, but they are very, very close to DCU. The accommodation is very, very similar. But again, it's not a DCU accommodation. So you have the Gateway Student Village, Shannon Square, Shannon Hall, Schoolhouse Court, Unionist Student Residence, and Aspen. So there's, when we sent you the PowerPoint presentation, there is links here that will bring you to the accommodation. So when you were looking for accommodation, my advice is it's probably, although it's not official DCU accommodation, it's probably the safest option after the on-campus DCU accommodation, if that makes sense. They're all house proposals in the student accommodation, so they are very, very serious companies. So it's very straightforward, not a lot of hassle. You don't have to worry too much, okay, if you book those accommodations. So outside of the on-campus DCU accommodation, those are probably the easiest and safest way to go. And then, of course, when you go for, if you have to rent a property, I would say probably try to go first for some letting agencies. It's easier, it's safer, and then the last option would be go straight to the landlord. Okay. Again, just reinforce, those student residents are not affiliated with DCU. Okay, they are independent. And then there is a few other options as well. When you look for accommodation in Ireland for property, those websites are very well known, very famous, very easy to use, and you can find all the options there as well. So my advice for you guys, before you even start searching for a property, the first thing you should look at the total rental cost and your budget, the location of the property, how much room do you need, and all the amenities that you need and that you would like the property to have. So have a list of that first and make sure what you are looking for. It will make the search much easier. Okay. So now some advice, things you should know. So before the viewing, before you go to see the property, there are some questions that you should ask yourself. So how many bedrooms are in the apartment? How many bedrooms do you need? How much the rent? When is the apartment will be available? Are utilities included in the rental cost? If not, how much will they be per month? So in Ireland, you have some properties where all the bills are included, and some properties you have the rent and all the bills are outside of that rent. So it's all those questions you have to ask to make sure that they will fit on your budget. Okay, so are there laundry facilities? Do they have any rules about guests? Where is the closest public transportation located? That's very important for you guys. Is the area safe? Where or not you needed a reference? So sometimes when you're going to rent a property, the landlords can ask a list of documents. So make sure you have all those documents ready before you go. And a reference could be one of those documents. So while you were viewing the apartment or the property, some things you should do. So and ask, are you sharing space with other people? Do you need to set up internet service, or it's already there, it's already included? Is there storage or radiator heating? Are the laundry facilities pay or free use? You have both options in properties in Ireland. Are there working smoking detectors? Is there a fire blanket and extinguishers in the apartment? Are there enough electrical outlets in each room? Is there cable television hooked up? Is the hot water working? You should check all of that. Do the door locks work? Do the windows have working locks? And are they easy to open and close? Do the appliance, for example, oven, stove, fridge, are function properly? Is there any visible damage in the space? If there is, you should take notes and probably take pictures on that, because at the end, for you to show that you're not liable for those damage, that they were already there when you move out. And what is the deposit amount? So very important, guys, you should know that when you come to Ireland, it's very common to ask for a deposit before you rent an apartment. The deposit in Ireland, usually it's 1 month of rent that you pay in advance. And at the end of the letting period, you'd get that deposit back if there is no damage in the apartment. Okay, this is why it's very important for you to note every single damage in the property before you move in. Just to clarify, landlords cannot ask more than 1 month rent in terms of deposit. Okay, the only exception is the student residence building, because they are outside of they have a separate rules. Okay, so when you move to a student accommodation, there's a lot of different options that you might have to pay in advance before you move in. And now some advice, very, very good advice when you start looking for properties. So first thing is, what is your budget? You need to know exactly how much you can spend per month, and then check, and you have to consider everything. The rent, the expenses, for example, public transport, food, any kind of bills. So you need to know exactly what is your budget. And then you start looking for properties that are going to fit your budget. So, and again, very important to check what is included in the rent. Make sure you understand what's included in the rent. As I mentioned before, some accommodation offers all-inclusive package, so you don't need to worry about any utility bills. But some properties, all the bills are paid outside of the rent. So it's very important that you make sure that you understand which one you are going in. Where are the most suitable locations? As I said before as well, although it's very desirable to live very, very close to the university, it might happen that you may have to live a little bit further away from the CU to secure a space. But again, bear in mind that all the CU campuses are very well served with by public transport. So it's very, very easy to move around. If you find any difficult when you were searching for properties, you can always reach out our DCU student union, and they will probably be able to offer you additional advice and give you some level of support. Okay, make sure you read carefully through contracts or lease and have a tenancy agreement signed before any payment and move in. So you shouldn't pay anything before you sign your leasing. Okay, that's very, very important. And ideally only do business with established rental agents. As I said, the student accommodation, it's usually the safest one, and then rental agents is the second one, and then you can go to the landlords directly. And it's very important that you check if the landlord is registered with the RTB. Okay, so there is a website here where you can check every single landlord if they are registered, and that's very, very helpful. Always meet a prospective landlord before the accommodation is rented. That's very, very important. You can ask for a photo identification of the landlord or the letting agent and take a picture of the document on your phone. So get organized. Potential landlords will want reference from work and previous landlords, as well proof of ability to pay rent. As I said, it could have a lot of documents, a lot of things that they're going to ask. Make sure you have all those documents ready to go. If you don't, focus on ads placed by tenants rather than landlords, for example, house shares. Okay, so if you don't have all of that, you can go with tenants, for example, with other students that are already there, are already renting a building, and you just rent a room from those students. It's probably the easiest way, because one of those students actually have all the leasing and all of that. As I said, they will, in Ireland, they will very likely ask you for a deposit. So you should have your deposit ready before you go to see a place. So a security deposit generated paid to the landlord as part of the rental agreement and returned to the tenant at the end of the agreement if no damage is found on the property. So very important, pay your deposit directly to the landlord. Don't pay to any couriers or anybody coming to collect that. Okay, so always use checks or bank drafts to pay your deposit and keep copies of every single receipt and payment and any correspondence. So make sure that the keys fit on the door, and always sign the rental contract prior to payment of deposit or any kind of payment. That's very, very important. So, and of course, like everything in life, there are always people that want to be smart, and there's a lot of scams out there. So search smart, okay? So a few tips for you to identify a scam when you're going to rent a property. So when you try to meet with the landlord, there's always an excuse not to meet. He's always out of town, he's on trip, he's working, he's busy. So usually they will not meet you. They want to do everything online. Okay, they never show you a live video inside of the property. There's always an excuse. So because it's all fake. Okay, so there's a few signs for you to know if it is a scam or if it's potentially could be a scam. So they want you to transfer money to a bank account outside of Ireland. That's a big red flag. Okay, if you're going, so he gives you a bank account outside of the country, it's a red flag. They always want the money soon, so they always push you to pay the property even before sign any agreement. So when the property is offered with no question asked and payment is demanded straight away. So if you go to rent a property and they don't ask anything, any document, any reference, it is a red flag, okay? When you are asked to pay in cash or cryptocurrency or money via non-bank transfer, such as wire transfer, another red flag. Okay, all payments should be through a bank account. And they get very impatient and annoyed easily if you ask too much questions. So if you start asking questions, they will get annoyed. So that's another red flag. And then very important, always, if something seems to be too good to be true, it probably is fake. Okay, there's no such thing. If you see something, an amazing property with a very low price, it's always a scam. Okay, and again, never transfer money to anyone without seeing an apartment in person. Okay, that's very, very important. So I added here a few very good links for you guys to check. There's all the information here. So, and in getting to GCU, it's a very comprehensive link web page, and you can even check every single bus line coming to GCU, where they are coming from. It's a very, very good website. And then know your rights, so all the tenants' rights. So it's very, very important that you go through that. And there's the official Dublin public transport, a link to the LEAP card, and then the DCU student badge. And then you can learn more about tenant safety from all those links, even from the Garda. So very, very, I would strongly advise you to go through all those links before rent any property. Okay, so now we can go through the questions on the chat. And again, thank you very much, guys. So I will check with Priya what he has seen there on the chat and what are the common questions.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation, Tiago. Yeah, the questions, some of the questions that they've asked, you've answered them already, like in presentation. Like I know someone was asking about scams on StudentPad, and if the posts on StudentPads are authenticated. So maybe just to reiterate for students who were not there before, as Tiago said, that platform is just an advertising platform. The student union does not confirm like the postings on there, so it's down to you to be discerning, follow those tips that Tiago has given, things to watch out for, like when it's a scam. If you've not seen the accommodation in person, if the landlord or person is trying to rush you into making payments, particularly maybe making payments without a bank account as well. So just look out for those things. Another question that someone asked that is not kind of like related to accommodation was about how to get a leap card. Typically, I think, yeah, once you search on Google student leap card, like once you get to Ireland, it will take you to a page where you'd fill in your information. And then you can collect your leap card in person, either at the student union when you get here, as well. And then someone else was asking if it's feasible to stay in Wicklow or Sandymount. Um, from my own perspective, I think it might be a bit too far. But I don't know if Tiago, like if you have any alternative view.
Yeah, like I think I think it is a bit too far, but again, I don't know what is your arrangement on those locations. Perhaps it's a family living there and you might not have to pay any rent. I think, listen, we are all different. Like some students are more used, if you are from a big city or you have massive traffic every morning, so you are used with those kind of commute. And some students are not happy. They would like to wake up, walk, and be on the college. So it's very different from people to people. But I think Wicklow, it is a bit too far to commute every day, to be very
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, I would agree. Someone is asking if you can contact DCU if you face any issues. Again, like, we do not take any responsibility for any accommodation that is not on campus. So if you're having any issues with any landlords, like I think that should be between you and the landlord, because DCU realistically cannot really do much about that situation. So please just be as discerning as you can be. Try to follow these tips. Try to confirm the authenticity of the accommodation by like going in there to view it, as Tiago said, to even down to like checking if the keys that they've given you actually open the doors. Ask as many questions as possible just
Yeah.
to get as much assurance.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to reinforce, if you contact our student union for help, they will give you support and advice. But again, they can't take the lead and deal and have any deal between you and the landlord. Okay, that's not the union uh, place, and they can't. So, guys, sorry, there's somebody unmuted with a very loud music. I'm
Music
really
playing.
sorry. Yeah. Just if you could mute yourself. Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. So again, the student union, they cannot get involved between you and the landlord, don't have any kind of dealing with that. But the student union can give you very strong advice. But again, as I mentioned before, it's very important to you to know. So if you go for outside a proper student accommodation, they are very safe. Okay, they might be maybe perhaps a little bit more expensive than if you rent a room, but they're very safe, very straightforward. They're very close to DCU, and you don't have a lot of hassle. You don't need to do anything pretty much. And then after that, I would advise try to use a letting agents first before you go direct to the landlord. When you have letting agents, they do everything for you. So they check the landlord, they guard the vetting, they do everything. So it is easier. It's more comfortable for you and less risky. Okay, so the risk start when you are dealing directly you and the landlord. Okay, and of course, it's not that it's all a scam. It's not what I'm saying, but it could happen. Also, so if you go with a student accommodation or a letting agent, it's less likely that's going to happen. Okay, and then of course, if you were renting a room from another student that are renting the apartment, you just need to be aware that you are not inside you are not covered for all the rights of a tenant. Okay, so any dealing, it's between you and those students. So just be aware that if something happened, you will have to deal directly with your flatmate, and you have to sort it out the problems directly with them, if that makes sense.
Okay. Someone here is asking that some properties ask for entire rent upfront. So, like, do you mean that they're asking for the full year because you do not have a guarantor? Like, I'm not entirely sure what that question is, but please just clarify, and then we'll take it. Someone else is asking, someone traveling from another country. Yeah, like if you have any tips on how to authenticate owners, since you cannot go in person. So I would use myself as an example. I came from another country, like when I was coming to DCU. What I did was I got temporary accommodation. So you could get temporary accommodation either through Airbnb or like a hostel. That way, when you get here, so you try to schedule your viewings for when you are in Dublin, so you tell them, okay, I'll be coming in to the country on so and so time, and I want to view those accommodations at that time. So I think that would be the best way, because like, unless like it is someone, like if maybe you have someone that you can trust, like maybe a friend or a family member that can go on your behalf to view the accommodation for you, please do not make a payment until you have seen the accommodation. Yeah.
Yeah, I had very similar experience with that you had, Bria, again. When I came to Ireland, I got a host family first. I didn't get Airbnb, so I got 3 months of host family, and it was a lovely experience, and it gave me time to comfortably looking for a proper accommodation here with not a lot of stress. So very easy, very straightforward. And some people get 1 month, some people get 2. I got 3 just to give myself some time to look properly. But yeah, I would strongly advise not to make any payment online before you see the property, or have a friend here or a family member here that could go there and check.
Someone else is asking, okay, so that person that asked about like the full rent, so you're saying that they're asking you to pay the entire duration of the course upfront. Yeah, I would say just look for another accommodation.
Yeah.
If they say, oh, because you do not have a guarantor that they want you to pay just look for another accommodation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do not do that, because it's a big red flag. It's not a common practice in Ireland. So the landlords cannot ask more than 1 month rent as a deposit. Exception is, again, student accommodation. Like when you go like for those proper student accommodation, they have different payment plans and different things. But when it's a landlord, by law, they can just ask for 1 month.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just looking through to see if there are any more questions that we can ask. So someone else is still asking, like, regarding like on-campus accommodation for international students, when is the lottery date supposed to be? I am asking because for me, it is the best option right now. So we did the on-campus accommodation webinar last week, and I'm sure they would have made a mention on when the lottery dates would be. So I'd say go and refer to that. Please refer to that webinar to get the information that you need. Okay, and then someone is just asking a question about like, is there a website to look for family hosting accommodations? Tiago, do you know any?
I'm not sure if I added here, but if I didn't, I can give a look and perhaps send by email. I think it's a better idea. Could you please send an email to us in the DCU
Yes.
Global,
Yeah.
and then and then I can check up that and reply the email to you. I think that's it is a better option.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, just send us an email and then we can look and send you some links. Yeah.
So it's
It's a student
Asians.
accommodation. Yes.
Yeah. Like again, guys, all that story that I know the question's coming again. It's apparently it's a agency asking for the full guys. It's not a common practice in Ireland. Again, there are other ways of show proof that you can pay for the rent. So my advice would be skip that, go to elsewhere. And it's too risky. Okay, it's too risky.
Yeah, I would totally agree with Tiago. Like asking you to pay upfront for the entire accommodation.
Yeah, that's not a common practice.
No. So it seems like there are no more questions. Thank you so much, Tiago, for the presentation, and thank you so much, guys, for joining.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate that you took your time to come and talk with us and hear us. So, and again, if you have any questions, guys, please send us an email to the DCU Global. Okay, if you have any further questions, and we always reply the emails. And